And the other big story overseas tonight, French President Emmanuel Macron re-elected to a second term in office. New video pouring into our newsroom of protests now erupting in Paris. Furious French voters taking to the streets shortly after the announcement. Violent clashes are being seen in cities across the country. Voters went to the polls today in France for the final part of their presidential election, a runoff between incumbent Macron and far-right opponent Marine Le Pen. Results from French polling agencies show Macron winning by a healthy margin, earning 58.8% of the vote compared to Le Pen's 41.2%, and she has conceded. Reporter Dalal Moad is in Paris with more on today's vote.
Rudabeh, there's a sense of relief and reassurance here in France, but also across Europe tonight as President Emmanuel Macron is projected to be re-elected for a second term according to early results. The official results will be out in a few hours or even a day. According to these early results, he won about 58% of the votes, whereas his opponent, extreme right candidate Marine Le Pen, won about 43% of the vote. The margin is smaller than in 2017 when the two candidates were also head-to-head. Despite her defeat, Marine Le Pen considered today's results as a victory. After all, she has really won and gained popularity during this campaign and really scored the highest number of votes ever. Also a winner in today's election is abstention, with the highest abstention ever recorded in France in 50 years. 28% of the French voters decided not to vote today. Macron's re-election is offering stability and continuation for France, but also for the wider region, for Europe. European politicians were very quick to congratulate the president tonight, a president who will work on further European integration, more support to Ukraine, more sanctions on Russia, and will also offer stability in the relationship of France with the United States. Rudabeh.
Dalal Moad, thank you. And for more on the French election, we are joined now by Marine Leruel. She is the director of the Institute of European, Russian, and Eurasian Studies at George Washington University. Thanks for being with us. Le Pen has conceded. What does that mean for Europe and particularly for the war in Ukraine?
Well, it's of course a good news for Europe in the sense that Macron has always been a key figure for pushing for European unity, European cohesion, European unified foreign policy and defense, while Le Pen has been continuing having a very pro-Russian line. Even a few days ago, she continued to really push for a kind of partnership with Russia, and she announced that if she would have been elected, France would have left the NATO integrated military command. So I think it's a big relief for everybody in Europe, except for the populists. But for the majority of European leaders, it's really good news for Europe. And of course, in relations to the Russia's invasion of Ukraine, it's also a very important moment because the election of Marine Le Pen would have been really destroying the European unity in favor of Ukraine.
But even though she lost, she still got a little bit over 42% of the vote preliminarily. What does that tell us about the current state of French politics?
Yeah, exactly. I think we should be relieved of having Macron elected, but we should also realize what it means. It's the best ever score obtained by a far-right leader in France, 42%. The level of abstention is very high. You said that 28%. Among young people, it's 42%. So what he's telling us is that the level of distrust domestically toward Macron policy is very high, which means that on the domestic scene, he will really have to kind of reinvent politics. I don't think it will impact the foreign policy, but on the domestic scene, he really has to make the second mandates looking very different from the first one if he really wants to get the trust again of citizens.
And, you know, a lot of people internationally looked at her as a candidate and compared her to Donald Trump here in the United States. A lot of the platforms were the same: nationalism, populism, anti-immigrant sentiment. Do you think that's a fair comparison? And what does the status quo of Macron now mean for the U.S.?
Yeah, I think it's more or less, I mean, there are, of course, big kind of cultural and political nuances to do, differences to do between the French political context and the US one, but she's more or less, yeah, this kind of illiberal, populist, anti-immigration, far-right representative, and that would have been really putting France in a very delicate situation also on the domestic scene. So what does that mean now for the US to have Macron? Well, that's a good news for the US, because even if sometimes Macron has been very critical toward US foreign policy, is a very reliable partner of the US, especially on the military and strategic scene. There is no ambiguity on his loyalty to NATO. So I think it's also a big relief in the US, especially because we knew that Le Pen would have had open a kind of very pro-Russian position that would have been really breaking the coalition that we have now in favor of Ukraine.
And there are reports, you might have just seen it, of protesters clashing with police on the streets in France. Do you know the latest on the ground? Does that surprise you at all?
No, it's not really surprising, because that's a kind of French political tradition, and the far right has been very active in the streets. And of course, I mean, I don't think they are trying to get a kind of January 6th French version, but there is a very high level indeed of kind of culture of protest, both from the far left and the far right. And of course, they are very disappointed, the far right supporter, because 42% was really a very high score. So they were probably hoping they would be able to make it this time. So we see indeed a scene of protest, and that will probably continue for a few hours or a few days. So which really telling us about the kind of the really unsatisfied atmosphere of a large part, I mean, still a minority, but 40% of the population in France voted for her. So it's telling us a lot.
It's a large minority. So what were the biggest issues for the French people? What brought them to the polls? Because, of course, these two candidates faced off before, but now the world is a very different place.
Yeah, well, as always, foreign policy doesn't really play a big role on the way people are voting. So what they were expressing was mostly, for those who were voting for Marine Le Pen, it's not so much only the anti-immigration strategy. I think it's what's made her so successful. It's her combination of this kind of anti-immigration narrative with a very leftist or worker-oriented, more economic policies in favor of welfare state. And that's really a combination that is speaking to a lot of the poor and middle classes who kind of feel very abandoned by Macron policy. And you remember the Yellow Vest movement and so on. So there are a lot of kind of difficulties. We are 2 years after COVID, as everywhere in the world. So a large part of the kind of middle classes feel really dissatisfied by all the reforms Macron have been doing. And what they were expressing in voting for Marine Le Pen was maybe not so much a support for her than a way to say to Macron that he has to change the way he's doing politics at home.
And the world markets were watching this race closely as well.
Yeah, of course, it's also a good news for the world markets, because Marine Le Pen had already announced that her economic policy would be really kind of colliding with what is the global EU and Eurozone. So that would also have created a lot of instabilities on the markets.
All right, Marlene, thank you so much for being with us, helping us break it down on this important day in France.
Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.